3D photos of Mt Wellington. Being close to Hobart and dominating the city, the mountain's always been close to the heart of locals, and it still elicits a passionate response today. It was by far the most photographed subject in Tasmania. 150 years ago, stereoscopic or 3D images were produced by the use of a special camera. It had two lenses set apart, about the same distance as our eyes, and it captured two photographs simultaneously. When seen through a dedicated viewer, the photos combined to form a single 3D image. These stereoscopic views were hugely popular. The photos I'm going to show you in this episode are all from the Grist collection. John and Maria have generously shared these photos with us. Stay tuned until the end of the episode to find out how you can have your very own set and view them in 3D for yourself. Samuel Clifford lived between 1827 and 1890. Around 1859 he had a studio at 132 Liverpool Street. He was hard-working and prolific. In 1878 he sold his studio to the Anson brothers, and in 1892 they sold it to John Watt Beattie, who changed the name to Beattie Studio, and it's still called that today. This stereoscopic view by Samuel Clifford is captioned "Fallen tree 200 feet long on the track to the potato field Mt Wellington." The objects on the fallen tree are presumed to be part of his photographic equipment, and he might have included them for scale. The potato fields are located on the track between the Springs and Wellington Falls. Clifford visited Wellington Falls on a photography expedition, along with G. Whittington and N. Ballantyne, in February of 1865. The trip was recorded in Henry Wood's Visitors Book, and the entry reads, "Visited the falls on a photographic excursion, and consider our toil amply repaid by the splendid scenery there. But regret the gentleman in the preceding pages, who made the journey to the falls and back again in 2.5 hours, did not leave his address, that we might have obtained the name of his bootmaker." Given it's listed as a 4-hour trip today, 2.5 hours seems pretty quick to me. Two paths diverged in the woods. I took the one that led home. So here I am on the track through to Wellington Falls. The intersection with the Icehouse track is about an hour's walk back that way. So I've come a little way since the last video. And yeah, I think this is the spot. We have trees, fallen trees either side. We have a track with a slight curve heading off into the distance. I reckon this might be the spot. Plowed field track to Mt Wellington, stereoscopic view by Samuel Clifford. The ploughed field was a notorious stretch along the track to the pinnacle. It was in common use before the zigzag track was built. The New South Wales Art Gallery has a copy of the same image and dates it at 1866 to 1870. Taken from the Springs, stereoscopic view by Samuel Clifford. The hill at the middle distance may be Knocklofty, date unknown. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the right dip in the mountains there behind me, but you can barely see it through the trees. I doubt you can even make it out on the video, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm going to have to get up a bit higher and see if I can see through the trees a bit better. See how we go. I think I'm heading in the right direction. Okay, I think this might be the lookout. It's a good spot, and you definitely get a good view all around the hills there. Of course, it's the worst time of the day to come. I'm shooting straight into the sun, which makes it a little tricky. Hopefully you can get a reasonable idea of the view, which is pretty spectacular. James Matheson Sharp was a photographer and a dentist. He partnered with Dickinson, Firth and Dowling and sold his photography business to Alfred Bock, who was the stepson of convict engraver Thomas Bock. Alfred was known for his hand colouring in an era of black and white photos. Sharp produced stereoscopic photos around the mid-1800s and onwards. Captioned Plowed Fields, Tasmania, a gentleman is seated atop one of those dolerite boulders on Mt Wellington. Stereoscopic photo by James Matheson Sharp. Finding an exact set of rocks that match the photograph, a little on the tricky side. Captioned Path Going Up Mt Wellington, Tasmania. Stereoscopic photo by James Matheson Sharp. Charles Woolley is most noted for his 1866 studio portraits, known incorrectly as the Last Tasmanians. This Charles Woolley stereoscopic photo is captioned Hobart Town and River Derwent from the Springs, Road to Mt Wellington. There was no vehicular road at the time. Walking tracks were sometimes referred to as roads. Pillinger Drive was not completed to the Springs until around 1900, a few years before the Springs Hotel opened. The building shown may have been one of Henry Wood's buildings at the Springs, but this is not confirmed. Woods was a well-known local identity who lived on the mountain, supported walkers and assisted the council with various maintenance works between 1860 and maybe 1880. The Sears photographic studio appears to have been based in Victoria around the first half of the 20th century. This stereoscopic photo from the Grist collection shows the fern tree bower. Another stereoscopic photo from the Sears photographic studio. This one shows Silver Falls at Fern Tree Bower. Underwood and Underwood were producers of 3D stereoscopic cards, and this might well be one of the prettiest. It shows a group enjoying life at Fern Tree Bower one Christmas. It's such a pity that this area of ground, which enabled the placing of these long picnic tables under the shades of rows of trees, was damaged in the 1960s flood. Copies of both monochrome and hand-coloured versions of this card are in the Grist collection. Harry Taylor Waterworth ran a photographic business and general store for a few years in Hobart and in Burnie. He won several awards with photos printed in the Tasmanian Mail in 1896 and 1897. It seems he didn't continue with photography, as his 1947 obituary does not even mention this part of his life. In spite of this, the few photos he did produce early in the 20th century were well executed. By the way, it was not H.T. but E.N. Waterworth who was the optics specialist and produced the popular Waterworth brand slide projectors in Tasmania. Forest Hut H.T. Waterworth stereoscopic card, date approximately 1903 to 1904. Waterworks' address is listed on this card as 89 Liverpool Street. Fern Retreat Hut is shown here not long before the building of the summer house, and tentatively dated about 1903. H.T. Waterworth, 89 Liverpool Street. George Rose of Melbourne produced stereoscopic photos for sale, of which I'm showing 5 examples today. According to his obituary in the Argus, Wednesday 21st of January 1942, he was also the creator of a series of postcards known as the Rose series, which he established after the demand for the stereoscopic photos declined. This series consisted of well-produced photographic cards and featured well-known scenic views of the day. Path Up Mt Wellington, Tasmania, Winter. I've included the surround in this photo so that you can see the beautiful printed border. Silver Falls Fern Tree Bower, date probably 1905 to 1910. The sign at the right says Track to the Springs. Fern Tree Bower by George Rose. Shelter Shed at the Springs in the Mist by J.W. Beattie. This photo is in poor condition, but really atmospheric. It shows a gentleman, possibly the Ranger Charles Gadd, silhouetted at the front of the shed. Date circa 1900. Stereoscopic photography continued to be popular for a time during the 20th century, and here's a slightly later example. W. Hale had a studio in Victoria at around 1900, and by 1909 he'd moved to Tasmania, where he set up a studio in Scottsdale. This stereographic image of Fern Retreat Hut, Mt Wellington, showing three ladies standing at the right beneath the tree ferns, is one of the second version of the hut, and the photo probably dates from around 1910 to 1915 or thereabouts. John and Maria Grist have shared these photos with Beattie's digital studio, and I've digitised and restored them and printed them in a stereo pair. We've packaged them in a box set with a pop-up viewer so you can enjoy them in 3D just as the photographer intended. If you'd like to purchase one of these box sets for yourself or as a gift, please visit our website www.beattiestudio.com. I will catch you in the next episode. Thank you for watching. Cheers!